Summarize.
Thank you, Lynn. So here's the question. Anybody want to take the floor to ask these presenters here any question or want to revisit something that was said or something they wish they had said? Gina.
Yes, Gina Solomon with Cali, PA. I wanted to revisit the issue of confidential business information because it just keeps coming up, and add in a little bit of the California perspective from the Safer Consumer Products regulation effort, where we put a lot of thought into this effort and this issue. And really the three principles that we kind of came down to are, number one, to require very significant substantiation of CBI claims, which would involve a couple components that, in particular, which is showing that the information is very jealously guarded in other contexts, and also showing that that information cannot readily be reverse engineered through analytical chemistry or other approaches. There are a few other components to that, but that's the one main thing. Second main thing is to revisit those claims periodically, because something that is bona fide CBI today may not be a year from now. And then what was the third piece? There are also, now I'm forgetting the third. The issues of CBI are, should not, that's the third one, should not be connected to hazard trade information. So in other words, if you're presenting toxicology data or other hazard data on a chemical, in general, we even narrowed it further. And so in that case, the current language is that you have to show that a patent has been applied for and is still pending, at which point you could actually temporarily mask the chemical identity as associated with the hazard information. So it's really, you can sort of put some constraints around CBI and still maintain it. That's at least what we're hoping to do in California right now.
Thank you, Gina. A response from Lynn? A quick response?
So CBI is, as you know, a very difficult issue. It's hard to manage it. I know from experience. I think that your point is well taken, that it needs to be revisited. I would even go further and say claims should just have a sunset time, and if companies want them extended, they have to come back and explain why. But I think most of the claims could be sunsetted with no harm. It's been all too easy to stamp things CBI. When we did an audit years ago at EPA, one of the things that was found was a New York Times article stamped CBI. That's ludicrous, and I'm only saying that, it's the truth, so that's the problem, and there hasn't been questioning. There's been no, I'll tell you what happens if you work for a company, you disclose something, you fail to stamp it as CBI, you're in trouble. If you overstamp, you're not, because nobody's been checking. And part of it is that the systems are based on old paper type systems. And, the whole system needs to be, updated and modernized using modern informatics. And that's part of the problem. It's a huge part of the problem. I'd say last, and just look at pesticides, that the companies submit all the raw data for their studies. They submit all this detailed stuff. I don't think the public cares about that. I really don't. I don't think they want to see the data for each and every mouse in a mouse study. What EPA discloses to the public is summaries. You see the tables. You can see the basis for a safety determination. And that doesn't get them into trouble with CBI, because that cannot be taken to a regulatory authority in Argentina, Brazil, or somewhere else to get a pesticide registration. And so there are common sense ways that the hazard information can be disclosed without hurting somebody's investment.
Any additional comments by anybody? Well, wonderful. That leaves it to me. No, Al. No, Al. Anybody want to respond to that? Hal? Why don't you use a mic?
He was just asking if there was something to fill the void other than legislation. You know, the one thing that we've done before and could be done more of is, you know, of course, voluntary efforts to gather more information. If one can get agreement on the right way to do that. I think, and Bernie, others alluded to this in the summary, we have a real problem with incorporating up-to-date science in how we're doing chemical assessments. And I mean, it's an elephant in the room we really didn't talk about, but there, you know, other committees have done that. And, you know, as Hal said, we validate and validate and validate. And we validate to the point that by the time we're done validating, it's all out of date.
And you know, something that I would say as an educator, but I think we heard particularly from the industry folks who presented to us, is the importance of education, general education for the public.
Yeah, I think the other aspect is pressures coming from the other side, from the Walmarts and other institutions like that are wanting more assurance about how green their product is, how safe their product is. That has not been a predominant force historically. I think that's a growing force, which will also support, reinforce, and encourage safer chemicals as well.
I'll add one last comment to that. It's, you know, which is the fact is the public is overwhelmed with information. And, you know, I think we need to put some effort into, if this can actually be done, into reestablishing government science and other sources of just scientists in general as a credible source of information and a source of translation, because more and more and more data is not necessarily going to fix the problem. This data has to be applied in ways that people can use it to inform decisions, and they need to be able to trust the information sources. So any efforts that we can do to improve that situation, I think, would help as well.
Okay, so please.
Denny
quick
Dobbin,
word.
SOAI, Society for Occupational Environmental Health. How about investors? There was one presentation this morning about investors being informed and being interested in risk, and that could be a driver.
Well, that certainly is. It's a driver in other areas, and could be here because it is a risk, as we've all experienced when we read the paper from time to time.